everybody, welcome back. This is Miss Day. So we're going to continue working on our watercolor exercises. This time we're going to look at watercolor techniques. So you should have finished up your brush strokes. If you want, you can just flip the paper over and do your techniques on the back. So if you'll notice here, it also describes the brushes and the paint. If we look at the directions, it says 9, but we're only doing 8. So we're going to divide our paper into 8 sections. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to practice. So if we look, the first technique is wet on wet. So you wet the paper. And this is a big mop brush here. You wet the paper, and I showed you this trick actually on the brush strokes. And once you wet the paper, then you're going to go back and paint on top of it, and you're going to watch the paint run or bleed. So this brush, you don't really need to put water in the paint first because this brush holds a lot of paint. So when you come across, it's not as dramatic as I would have liked. It will bleed. I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch to black because you can really see whatever. Remember, I just want to make sure that there's no sticky blobs. That's called charging, actually. So you can see that the paint does not stay where you put it. It's going to move around, and that's called wet on wet. When you do wet on dry, you're just painting on the dry paper, and so you'll be able to see the difference here of what it looks like. It holds the shape of the brush stroke. It doesn't move outside. So that's just the regular, what you would consider painting. I'll do one here too. And you can see when they touch, the brush strokes touched, they will run together. They will bleed together. So that's why you want to always let it dry in between. It dries fairly quickly. You can tell that it's wet if you see kind of a shiny shimmer glaze look over it. That means it's still wet. Let's look at number 3, glazing. So glazing, this is very traditional watercolor technique. This is where we're trying to create layers of transparent paint. So let's try. I've got red here. Let's get some more red. And we're going to do some brush strokes here in red. And we're going to let these dry, and I'm going to go back over them in another color. And actually, I think I'm going to get a smaller brush. The brush isn't there. Let me grab the other brush. Okay. So I've got a small round here, and I've also got another watercolor brush here that I'll try. Oops. All right. So it's still wet over here, but it's starting to dry throughout this area. I'm going to get a little bit of blue. Just want to make sure there's no blobs in it. I'm going to put some little blue lines in here also so we can see what it looks like. And then maybe I'll try, get some clean, I'll try the green. I'm going to try to do a glaze with this green color. Really pretty green. All right, so what I'm trying to do is to give this time to dry so that when I paint over it, it's going to be a glaze because you'll be able to see the colors underneath through the color that I just painted across. So let's see what we get here. Okay. So you can see the green is moving a little bit right here, so it wasn't quite dry, but it was definitely dry on the first one. See how the stroke did not move, and you can see the colors underneath through the green. That's a true glaze right there. That's what a glaze looks like. So the paint has to be dry. Very nice. Very, very nice. Yes. I hope that you can see that. Perfect. All right, so let's keep going. We're going to move on to something called lifting. Number 4 is basically a way to erase. It's not going to erase completely. There are some ways to erase completely, but usually it will damage your paper. So let's try, I really like this green, and I've already got it started with some water. So let's lift up some of this green here. Let's see what this does. All right, so I'm gonna put the green, not as dark as I would like. I'll add a little bit more. And as a matter of fact, I'll come in here and get some of this blue. I'll put some of this blue in here. All right, so to lift it out, you're basically going to be erasing with clear water. So I'm going to rinse my brush, make sure that the water runs clear, and then I'm going to drag it across, and hopefully you can see that. Drag it across. And you can see it is erasing or lifting up the watercolor. Oops, okay, and I just splashed it everywhere. Let me lift that up too. Okay. So hopefully you can see that. Beautiful glaze, excellent example of lifting. Let's continue. Charging with water is number 5, and charging with paint is number 6. So these are very similar. They both start out with you're painting the area of the paper. I'm going to turn the paper this way. How about that? So we're going to paint the area of the paper. Let's see, I'll start with red here. And I will paint this red. And I'll paint this one red too. Why not? So, charging with water, you're just going to clean your brush, and you want it to have some water in it. This brush apparently it's a little sad. It's not quite where it should be. And then you're going to let the water drop. You can hold it from a higher level if you want, and it'll create this really intense kind of splatter pattern, and it's going to move. And so the pressure of the water is going to push the paint out of the way. Let's try it right over here. Okay. It is difficult to see, so I'll zoom in on it in just a moment. I want to show you up here, this is charging with water. We just dropped water onto the paint. Up here, we're going to charge with more paint. So I'll try a little bit of the green, and we're just going to drop the green in. You can hold it up high and drop it in, or you could actually touch it to the paper. Either one is, in a sense, charging. You're filling it up, charging it up. And I got some charge on my charging with water. I got some green there, but that's all right. So those are the 2 examples of charging. Charge with water to make an area lighter. Charge with more paint to make an area darker. And of course you can go in and put in multiple colors. Crayon resistant salt are the last two techniques, and before I get to those, I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see what it looks like. Let's zoom in. Okay, you can see the beautiful charging with paint, and let's see if we can, yes. Okay, you see those splatter lines? Those are called blooms. B-L-O-O-M-S, and that's what happens when you get a lot of water, and it makes sort of that watermark, and that is very traditional of watercolor to have those blooms. So let's do the last two techniques. They're really fun. The first one is called Crayon Resist, and you're going to use a white crayon, and you can, this is how you can save an area of the paper to make sure that it stays white when you are going over it to paint. So maybe you have highlights on something, or maybe you want to write a secret message. I don't know what you might want to do. So I just did kind of a doodle, and we'll see what it looks like. So I'm going to take my brush. Actually, I think the mop is too big. I don't want to use that mop. I want to use, you know, I wish that that one was a little bit better quality, but what's happened is that it's, the hairs, this has been left in the water. So you can see how it's curved. So the hairs are sort of, they're kind of messed up. So let's try this little brush and see if I can get it to cooperate. I'm gonna come over here, a little bit more water. So this is, I'm just gonna do a flat wash. So I'm gonna go across and back. Now this brush is too small. Darn it. Let's try this one. Okay. Yeah, that's more like it. All right, so you can see where I marked the paper with the crayon, it's resisting. So the paint will not stick to that area of the paper. It just jumps over it. Now, if I was to continue to go over this over and over and over, sometimes it will cover it up. But, you know, the idea is not to brush over it that many times. So let's see if I can get this to come back up a little bit. All right, so I took a little bit of the water, lifted it a little bit out. Last one, salt. Everyone enjoys this one. It makes a really cool pattern. I'm gonna try with the black so I can really get an intense pattern. So here's some black paint. I'm gonna pick up some blue and put it in here as well. Maybe we'll do a little starry night kind of effect here. Make sure you wash your brush before you switch colors. Of course, if it's in the lid, you know, you don't have to worry about that. But all right, so with the salt, it has to be wet. The paper has to have some water on it in order for this technique to work. So make sure that you don't wait too long before you apply your salt. I don't know what happened to this salt. Apparently somebody desperately needed some salt and ripped the whole top off of this thing. You see this? I don't know what happened. So it just takes a pinch. I'm just going to take a little tiny pinch and I'm going to sprinkle it over my paper. And you will see dots appear. I'm going to zoom in. You'll see dots appearing. And it's going to slowly start to change as the water dries. The salt is grabbing the water and it's pulling it towards the little piece of salt. So it's going to drag the pigment with it and create this really cool star effect. Okay, I'm going to pause and we're going to wait and come back and see how it looks.